Why does London Underground wish to close every single ticket office?
I tell you why, David. It's because we've got a wonderful new technology, which you may have noticed, called Oyster Card, which enables people to use automatic ticketing systems, and indeed we're going further than that, and we'll be using other forms of payment card. You'll be able to use your bank card, you'll be able to use your mobile phone pretty soon, and only 3% of our customers, our passengers, actually use ticket offices at the present time. And what we can't do, frankly, David, is go on with a fundamentally Victorian system of infrastructure when the opportunity is there to modernise, to automate, and to get London Underground staff where they need to be and where they want to be, which is helping the customers. So you as a punter, you as a passenger will have live human beings, more live human beings in most of the big stations, certainly, able to help you and to with any problems that you have. And no station, I repeat, no station will be unstaffed. And we're doing this at a time, obviously, when crime has come down already very considerably on the tube network. We've got the safest tube anywhere in Europe, and we think it's time to go forward.
David?
Well, thank you for your answer, Mr. Johnson.
No, at all.
Rather unfortunately, your figures are rather wrong. You're saying that only 3% of passengers use the booking office. The actual figure is 19%. The figure at 3% is actually the amount of transactions that start at booking office. If you look at the actual figures, they're still just under a fifth.
3% on fewer, actually, it's gone down now. Fewer than 3% of journeys require any kind of use of the ticket office. And
you're wrong. You're being disingenuous. But let's put it this way.
You're perfectly. I don't know with what authority you speak, but I speak with a full plenipotentiary wisdom here of Transport for London, who have briefed me on this matter, David. And I'd be very surprised if they've misled me.
But they haven't misled you. What they're actually saying is that 3% of ticket office journeys start at ticket office windows. That means they buy a ticket at the window. Actually, the amount of customers who use ticket office windows is just under a fifth. It's 19%. You can check that with Transport for London, of course, and while you're on air with Nick, you can check those figures. There's absolutely no problem with that.
Well, there seems to me the relevant statistic is that if you look at journeys every day in London, only 3% of them, or fewer than 3% of them, actually involve a ticket office, and that seems to me to be a relevant consideration when you're trying to work out how to modernise the tube and use our scarce resources effectively in order to improve service. And we can invest in new track, new trains, new signalling. We can have a air-conditioned tube. We can have a 24-hour tube. We can modernise the system, or we can spend a needless £50 million a year, at least, on keeping open antiquated systems of running the network. And I think I know the best way forward. I think the advice I'm getting from TfL is right.
Well, what I can say is that if you're looking at saving £50 million a year, how much does one day's strike cost the people of London?
Well,
the figure is actually £50 million. It's the exact same.
Well, if I may, and exactly, and one of the reasons, David, why I think, and I'm sure you agree with me, since you're so passionately against strikes.
I'm not against it.
I see. I thought you were. Well, I thought by what you said just now that you were opposed to strikes.
I'm not opposed or for it.
You like strikes?
Not at all.
Right. Okay. Here's what I propose that we should do. What I think we should do is we should have a very modest change in the law, and I'm sure you're aware of what I'm going to say now. We should have a very modest change in the law, which I think the government is actually actively considering now, to rule out the possibility of a small minority of the members of one particular union effectively holding the city to ransom. And I've said that many times before, and I think that's the way to go. And lots of other cities have protections against kind of strikes that you rightly deplore, or you were about to deplore. And I think we should go down that route.
I'm rather disappointed in this stock answer that we put out to the people of London, that we deplore strikes and we're going to legislate against it. This is a serious issue, and because of
go on.
And because of a minority of politicians, they think to close the actions of the RMT, which is a democratic right. So we decide to change the law and not allow them that right, or at least get a minimum threshold.
Well, I think that's not a bad idea, actually. I do think it's not a bad idea. Look, I mean, in New York, as I'm sure
let the mayor speak.
as I'm sure you're aware, David, in New York, where it's traditionally the land of the free and the home of the brave, they actually have a prohibition on strike action by mass transit workers. We're very moderate in this country. We do allow people to withdraw their labour, even though it causes massive inconvenience to millions of people. And as you rightly say, it does cost business money. We have a very generous liberal approach. I think you could keep that generous liberal approach, but have a small change, which would mean that any union, any mass transit, any public transport union that wanted to go for a measure that would effectively paralyse the city would have to attract the interest, not the support, but the interest of at least 50% of their members in the ballot before the strike could go ahead. I think that's pretty right. Reasonable.
David, thank you. Just on this subject, the Financial Times reports this morning, Mr. Mayor, that a battle looms over plans for driverless tube trains. Two questions. How close are we to driverless tubes? And question two, how close are we to a battle?
Well, we're not... I hope very much we won't have...
There. Why were you waving at people?
I hope we won't have a... I was signalling that it would be lovely to have a cup of coffee.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
But more importantly
figures being brought in.
More importantly than that, I hope very much we won't have a battle. I see no reason for us to have a battle, because this is something that actually offers the opportunity for more jobs. I don't know, my last caller, David, I think may have represented one of the... Listening to him, it sounded to me like he possibly came from one of the trades unions involved, and that's
how will it mean more jobs?
It's great news, because what you do is, if you can get more trains through the system. In Paris, they have automated trains.
Yes, the 85 is the longest gap.
Yes. That's the point.
Yes.
Now,
this is the narrowest gap between trains on a Paris line.
Now. You and I can work it out, Nick. If you can shorten the distance, but the time lag between your trains arriving, you can get more trains through the tunnels. If you can get more trains through the tunnels, you have more staff on the trains. And obviously,
there aren't staff on the trains. They're driverless.
Okay, that's the key point. There will be, because what they won't be is old-fashioned drivers stuck in the cab and not able to look after the public.
DLR.
Don't forget, a tube train is a huge thing. It carries about 1,000 people, a full tube train, possibly more now, because we've got the new S-Stock vehicles. You're going to need somebody on that train to have a
train captain or marshal.
Have a train marshal, a train captain. Somebody's going to have a care to the passengers. Someone falls ill. Suppose, which I very much hope doesn't happen, suppose we have to, a train gets delayed in a tunnel. Right. People need to be walked off.
So it's like the DLR in a way.
Exactly. So actually, I think sensible people who make London Underground work, and listening to this conversation, will think, actually, there's going to be more jobs, high-quality jobs, interesting, fun jobs, actually interacting with the public, and not just stuck sitting in a cab, and really on some of the lines now, because of the automated system, all they have to do is pretty much close the doors and push the button to go. And
that's all a driver does.
On some lines, and they don't need to do that anymore in Paris. We need to move forward.
But if you've got a man or woman sitting at the front of the train, driving it, you're only going to put one train captain or marshal on. You're not going to have two train captains. So how can it mean more jobs?
Because you have more trains.
Because there'll be more trains.
More trains. You missed that point. Yeah, exactly. Because you have more trains coming through the tunnels. Because you speed up the system. Because you've automated it.
Okay. So there will be more trains, more jobs.
Of course.
A promise.
Of course. Because
so why are people talking about a battle? You'd have thought they'd be ecstatic. They'd be dancing in the streets.
That's the spirit, Nick. Why can't we have a bit more dancing in the streets? We've got this thing called Big Dance coming up, organised by my brilliant Deputy Mayor for Culture, Munira Mirza. Big Dance. We should have the entire leadership of the RMT doing a big dance in honour of the
on the subject of the RMT, while you avail yourself of some coffee, and I'm sorry it wasn't there when you came in. Earlier this morning I was speaking to Acting General Secretary of the RMT, Mick Cash, and he left this message for you.
Oh, right.
Boris interfered in this dispute before. He sabotaged discussions last week. I hope he allows us to get on with trying to sort out a tube network. I'd like to know if he's really committed to a publicly funded and a properly funded tube network, because he broke his promise to keep every booking office open, and that has kept like the sword of Damocles over all the discussions that have been going on. And I wish he'd commit himself to allowing us to get on and do the job and commit proper funding.
And what is the sabotage you claim that he wrought on the talks?
Well, the condition that was put in at the last minute last week to cancel all action.
And this is cancellation rather than suspension. So are you seeking to crush the RMT?
No, look, I don't seek to crush anybody. I'm a benign sort of guy, Nick, but I think that the actions of the RMT last week have been shown not to be sensible because, after all, their members went out. Some of them did anyway, actually fewer than before. They lost pay. They haven't really achieved very much because we're going to go ahead, or indeed anything, because we're going to go ahead with the programme of reform. And I just say to Mick, quite sincerely, one thing that I was at one with his predecessor, Bob Crow, or his putative predecessor, Bob Crow, and with him, is in getting more investment for the tube. I don't think he could seriously fault us for what we have done over the last 6 years.
Did you demand
There's been a massive...
Is that true?
No, the answer is no, absolutely not. No, I don't know. No, it doesn't ring any bells to me at all. We have had a massive splurge of investment in the tube, and we're going to continue to drive that forward. And look at what we're achieving. We've got the first extension of the tube for decades now going on at the Northern Line. We're proceeding with automation, with a 24-hour tube, with air conditioning on a huge number of the trains. We're going to have a new tube for London, and a better designed tube is going out for tender by 2016. So there's a lot to look forward to for all members of London Underground staff.